Thank you, Laurie. Thank you so much. And the first thing I want to say is just congratulations to our 2022 honorees. I'm honored to share the stage with you. You've all supported Bottomless Closet so much in different ways, and you're trailblazers in your own field. So I think we're going to have a great conversation here today. And just to say as well, congratulations to Teresa, our Volunteer of the Year. I see her out there again. And you know, we're so sorry Faith couldn't make it today, but I'm so glad that Selendi is here and you're all here, and she's fighting the good fight, as has already been said. So without further ado, we're going to have a great conversation today. We have 20 minutes, and I can tell you that from speaking with each of these women in the last week or so, I could easily have a 20-minute conversation with any of you, and it wouldn't still be enough time. So we're going to just power through a lot of different questions. So the first thing we wanted to really touch on today, I guess it's been spoken about a lot, it's even been spoken about in the House today, about how the pandemic has changed the world of work, and especially for women. And I think we all know at this point that women have been more adversely affected by men. The last study I saw on this from Fortune was that women's participation rates in the workforce is at 57% now, the lowest since 1988, which I would hazard to say is probably before some of the people in this room were born. So, you know, we have a little bit of a ways to go here, and we're seeing that among our own clients at Bottomless Closet. So Eleni, I'm going to start with you as someone who's worked in this field for many years. From your lens, what does the employment landscape look like today for women? And really what's changed and what's stayed the same since before the pandemic?
Well, I'm so excited to be here, and I have great news. I think the landscape for women and working women has never been better than it is today. And I can say that from direct experience working with our clients. It's always the first agenda item. How can we hire more women? How can we improve our representation of women in our organization? So I think it's actually a very exciting time to be a woman and trying to find work, but there are obviously many challenges that go along with that, which we'll be touching on. But I don't think that the job market could possibly be any stronger than it is right now for women looking for work. And it's all about figuring out the way to get there. And Bottomless Closet is certainly helping women find their way.
Right. And I know when we spoke earlier in the week, you talked about how, so Henkel works specifically in the financial services area, right, at a very senior level of recruitment, and how sometimes the challenge was that that pool of women available for those roles was actually smaller than the number of roles available. So I wonder if we could talk a little bit about that.
It's very true. In our niche, we work with financial services organizations, and I've been in financial services for almost 40 years. Mm-hmm. And you know, just to see the representation of women over those 40 years increasing, but I would say in the past 3 to 4 years, it's really taken on a new level of critical importance to organizations to do better, to hire more women. Mm-hmm. And so, again, the time is right. We need more women who want to have the jobs in financial services. That's where our struggle is. Right. It is not with demand, it's with supply. And so if we can draw more women in and get them excited about the roles, we could fill many more.
Many more.
It's more a challenge of not enough women finding their way to our business.
So for anyone who's working in finance in the room, it's a good time to be in your seat. Time. There's a table full of Henkel people here, so you can always have a conversation afterwards.
We would love to talk to you.
Okay, great. So I'm thinking about that just in general, and this is a more general question. I think I'd love to talk a little bit about hybrid working, and maybe Deirdre, I might start with you on this one, because it's something, you know, it's been such a buzzword, especially in the last 2 years, right? And we all, you know, the benefits of hybrid working. We can work from anywhere, we can work anytime. But sort of the flip side of that is, how do we not end up working from everywhere all the time? And one of the things that comes up with our clients a lot is this topic of burnout. And, you know, reading a survey, I think it was Deloitte did an international global survey with women, and it's the number one reason that women are dropping out of the workforce. And I think it could potentially be linked to that point you mentioned too earlier, Eleni. So Deirdre, I have a two-part question about this. The first is, as a leader in your organization, how do you work with your employees to help them manage their work-life balance and not get burned out? And the second part is more to do with you and your own career, and have you ever experienced burnout, and what did you do about it?
Sure. Well, so first of all, the struggle is real. It's not about whether I've experienced burnout, it's really about degrees of burnout.
Right.
I think it just depends. I'm constantly modulating between degrees. And so the biggest thing for me was changing the way I thought about work-life. People talk a lot about work-life balance. The biggest moment for me was pivoting from work-life balance to really thinking about it in terms of work-life integration. So that was number one.
Okay.
And what that enables you to do is to stop putting unrealistic expectations on yourself around what good looks like in that department. And you couldn't be more right. The pandemic was really hard because we're working at home. We don't have the boundaries that we would have with commuting and having dinners after work, all of the things that provide a necessary break. And so the biggest thing for me is, when I think about how I manage my team, I reward outputs over inputs. And I think that's a really important thing for us all to think about. So instead of focusing on, are you working from 8 to 6, right? Are you taking only an hour for lunch? I actually don't care. What I care about is, are you delivering what I need you to deliver and getting the job done in a way that works best for you? And I think that's increasingly important as we think about hybrid work. So that's one thing that's proven to be really productive for me and for my team. The second is modeling the behavior. So if I say I'm okay with how they work, when they work, but I'm constantly don't have any boundaries for myself, no one's gonna believe me.
Yeah.
And so I model the behavior, but I'm also very open and honest with the team about that. So my team knows I work out in the morning. So unless I have a meeting with Europe, I'm not in the office until 9 o'clock or on Zoom until 9 o'clock. My team knows I try and take a break for myself at lunch, to eat, which I'm terrible at making time to eat, and everyone knows I get hangry in the afternoon if I don't eat lunch. But also there's always some crisis that has come up in the course of the morning, and I want to make sure that I have time in the middle of the day to deal with that. And then the last thing is the importance of vacation. And it's really hard to work, no matter what job you're in, it's really hard to feel like you're go, go, go without making time for vacation. And so when I take vacation, I take vacation. So even if I'm checking my email for my sanity, I'm not replying. The teams know that if it's an emergency, call me. And if you don't call me, you're not going to hear from me. And the flip side is that I also encourage my teams when I see that they haven't taken vacation, there's someone in the office that just missed their vacation, and he's taking his vacation next week. And so I really think it's important to kind of reinforce that and then be really vulnerable when you're having moments that are challenging. I just said it to the team today at the table. I'm like, this has been a tough week. And I think it's okay as leaders, for us to show that level of vulnerability, because I think it makes it easier for the teams to realize that it's not always easy, no matter what level of the organization that you're in.
Right. I love that, the authenticity in that, to show up and call it out when things are challenging, and the modeling behavior as well. That makes so much sense. Rebecca, I'd love your thoughts on this as a business owner and as a mom to a young daughter as well. What does this look like for you?
I think the degrees of burnout is a very nuanced and important piece of it, because there certainly are degrees to it. And I think for me, I run a very small team, but mighty. And I think a big piece for us through the pandemic has been just checking in. And to Deirdre's point, like encouraging folks to take vacation, but also just making sure that whatever people are managing, I have a small child, but there are people managing lots of different things in their own personal lives. And I think with our team, there was a big conversation of you don't have to share what might be going on, but let's all recognize that there might be things going on, and giving people space for that. And I don't like to use the word grace, but I think I think what's shown up a lot is that a lot of grace for recognizing that you might not know what somebody's dealing with, and kind of giving them a little space for that.
Right. No, that makes so much sense as well. No, that's really great. And it makes me think about that. So the next topic, and this is something I want to hear from all of you on, because we couldn't be here at a Bottomless Closet event and not be talking about confidence. Because, you know, we talk about our Bottomless Closet clients. They walk out the door with an outfit. They walk out the door with a new resume. They walk out the door with new skills. But the most important thing they have walking out that door is confidence. And that's our number one job. And before the pandemic, it was the biggest thing we talked about. And after the pandemic, or can we say after the, wherever we are in this pandemic, it's, you know, we've people out of work 2+ years in some cases. So it's a task to bring back confidence. So I'm going to go to you all on this. Eleni, I might start with you. You know, whether it's walking into a boardroom or a showroom, or I don't know, maybe it's your teenager's bedroom, some situation that you don't feel confident, what do you do to bolster your own confidence? And I'm going to go to each of you with this question. I'll start with Eleni.
It's such a great question, and such an important point, and so important to have confidence. I mean, if you don't believe in yourself and you don't believe you can do what it is you're trying to do, certainly no one else is going to believe in you. And that's what is so great, in my opinion, about Bottomless Closet, because you really are giving people the skills. And I always say to my team, you really need to look the part, you need to feel the part, you need to believe that you can do it. And you and I had a conversation a couple of days ago, and the point of women often lacking confidence to a greater degree than men. And we work with male and female candidates, and the female candidates often will come in and say, you know, here's a job spec. There are 10 things the client's looking for, and there's perhaps one where they haven't had as much experience. And they'll say, well, I would never be chosen for this. I could never be right for this because I have only done this 10th thing twice. A male candidate would come in, look at the same job spec, and say, they may have only done one of the 10 things. And they'll say, I can crush all 10 of them, and I am better than any other candidate out there. And there are so many more stories like that I could tell all day long. And I get very upset with the female candidates because they will come in and they are so accomplished, often, you know, 3.9 GPAs from the best schools, who have worked, who have been athletes, who have, you know, done everything right. And they'll say, well, I should have done this and I should have done more of that, but I didn't. And I like to kind of shake them up and say, you've done, you know, everything right, but you have to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself, you're never going to give off that feeling that someone trusts you and wants to give you a new challenge and a new opportunity. And that's what is so great about Bottomless Closet, because it's looking the part. For me, the initial question was, what do I do when I'm going into a stressful situation? For me, it's all about preparing.
Yeah.
It's being prepared, feeling prepared, like I'm wearing the right thing, that I understand what is being expected of me, and that I've done my research and I'm ready to go. And you provide all of that to your clients.
Right. Yeah.
In Bottomless Closet. So it's really what women need to kind of overcome this. And the whole imposter syndrome and all of those things that are, you know, current buzzwords, but they're very real. We see it every day.
Yeah.
And we need to help women get away from the imposter syndrome and know we can do it. And I think there are many more examples out there today,
Absolutely.
Whether it's on air or it's as women running divisions of businesses or starting businesses. We're seeing so much more of that than we did when I joined New York WorkLife 40 years ago. So it's exciting.
That's
it's a
great.
good time.
That's great. And you're so right about that preparedness thing. And, you know, Tracy spoke about that in the beginning too, about how as women we undervalue ourselves, you know, and I love that example about the two different candidates and the lens in which they see it. Deirdre, how about you when it comes to confidence? Do you have any confidence hacks, or is it?
I think so. So first, I couldn't agree more with everything Eleni just said. For me, I think about it in terms of the 3 Ps. The first one we've talked about, which is preparation.
Yeah.
That is the key for me. So it's preparation is number 1. Second is practice, and the third is perspective. So since you talked about preparation, I won't spend any time there, but other than to reinforce how important it is, because that is single-handedly the thing that allows me to walk into the room, to have that confidence and to operate from a greater level of comfort in any situation that I'm in. And then the second is practice. I'll never forget, this was about 15 years ago, I had just started at eBay, and my boss at the time was chief marketing officer, and she did this huge presentation in front of like thousands of people, and the team was like, wow, she's just so good at that. I'm like, there's no doubt that she's good at that, but you know what? She probably spent hours practicing for the big stage. And so anytime I'm doing, whether it's a formal presentation or something that's informal, anything formal, I practice out loud, I talk to myself in the mirror, super helpful. And then informal presentations, when I go in with my notes, I always make sure that I have just a couple things jotted down that I want to make sure that I get across. Because if for some reason it doesn't come to me, off the top of my head, I can glance down and say, oh yeah, I wanted to make sure I hit that stat or talked about this key point. And then the last is perspective, and I think perspective is really important. Like, I've gotten so much better at this and so much more confident. I would never say that I'm completely confident. I was nervous today, right? It never completely goes away, but I've gotten so much more comfortable over time. And I think the perspective is really key, because we're all just people, right? And so at the end of the day, just acknowledging and remembering that the people that you're in the room with, whether it be board members or just other coworkers, they're all just people too, helps to make you less stressed and more self-assured.
I love that, the 3 Ps. Everyone jot that down. I'll be taking that one home with me for sure. Rebecca, how about you? I know a lot has been said on this already.
Yeah. I didn't have them as eloquently and alliteratively put together, but I think what I have kind of gathered in my own toolkit throughout my career very much echoes these. The first thing I was going to say was preparation.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that Bottomless Closet does that's so important, and one of the things that is really like an underpinning of my business was helping you feel comfortable when you walk into that big work moment, right? And I think you can't undercount the like physical piece to that.
Yep.
I know from my days of like suits and all, like when you are physically uncomfortable, it is so hard to feel confident.
Yeah.
And so I think, even today I had like this other outfit, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to be more comfortable in this bag of a dress. So I went with what I felt most comfortable in. And then I think the other thing for me, I came from an industry that really like prides itself on so much industry jargon that is like deliberately employed to intimidate and exclude people.
Yeah.
And once I like unlocked that and realized that there's so much like language being used to dress up like simple concepts, and that for me going into a new industry where there was so much to learn, I was able to always say to myself, listen, you might not know this thing, but you can understand it, know? So you can feel confident in your ability to figure it out. And I think that's like a difference in confidence when it's like, oh, I'm afraid I don't know something, versus being confident in your ability to get there and understand it. And that's the only piece I'd add on it too.
I love that. And the terminology and the jargon. I used to work in telecoms, so I totally get that. I used to create a glossary for my staff when they would come on, because it's like, you're going to hear these things in meetings, you're not going to know what it is and all that stuff. But I just got the signal that unbelievably there's only 2 minutes left of this conversation. So what I want to do is just super quickly, and Rebecca, I'm going to go back to you because I want to start with you for this one. If you had to give one piece of career advice to the people in the room, all the clients in the room are watching at home, what would you say? What's been the one piece of career advice that's really been good for you?
My biggest career advice, and something that I always remind myself, is just that you don't get what you don't ask for, and it rarely hurts to ask. And I will often, thank you, I'm getting applause. I will often, like when I'm making an ask, I will put that out there. I will say, listen, I'm going to ask you this because it doesn't hurt to ask, and I give myself that permission, and I think that it's a good way to operate.
That's amazing. And I'm going to segue quickly into ask for people to support Bottomless Closet today, because I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't do that, but that's amazing.
Big ask.
Thank you. Deirdre?
I guess there are a couple that I'm thinking of, but I'll just give one. If you're ever 100% confident going into a new job, it's probably not the right job. And I think that's really important, because in order for a job to be fulfilling and rewarding, it needs to be a bit of a stretch job. And it kind of ties with, Eleni, what you said earlier. And so I found myself getting the most out of those jobs that I was really scared to accept. But you can contribute what you know. You bring the best of what you know while you're learning and making the team better. And so for me, I think it's important to have that perspective.
Amazing. That's so true, yeah. Eleni, you get the last word on this.
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, you took two of my great pieces of advice. They've already been covered. The thing I would say, and I wish someone had given me this advice when I was younger and starting my career, is take risks and believe in yourself. And it all ties back to these themes that we've been discussing about confidence, about knowing I can do it, not I don't think I can or I'm not good enough. You are good enough. You are better than good enough to do it, but it's believing in yourself, and it's not short selling yourself, and take a risk. And I think Bottomless Closet is the perfect organization to give people that the confidence and the strength to say, I am going to take a risk. I'm going to stretch and go outside my comfort zone and take a job that perhaps I don't have 100% of the skills for, but is going to make me grow as an individual and as a professional. So that would be my advice. And I wish I had taken risks sooner. I worked in investment banking for 25 years before I became an entrepreneur starting this business.
Right.
And I think about it now and think, why didn't I do that before? Well, it was just, I was in my comfort zone.
Right.
And I wish I had taken the risk earlier.
Amazing. Well, I want to thank you all so much. Like I said, I could keep talking about all these subjects for a really long time, but I think we have our marching orders to take risks, to be confident, to stretch outside our comfort zone. So thank you all, and congratulations again. Our 2022 honorees. Amazing. Thank you all so much.